And now, the sequel you've all been waiting for. Hopefully. Yes, part 2 of which BeamNG vehicle handles best. And we will now be continuing from the Gavril H-Series. Enjoy. Hey, do you need a van? Well, how about this? Sure, it's rotten and it's got soggy seats, but you don't care. 1500 for this? What has the world come to? This is an H-Series. No matter what condition they're in, you're guaranteed to at least see 10 on your daily travels in North America. No matter whether you're in Saskatchewan or, I don't know, New Hampshire, it's top heavy, handles like a landslide, and is as aerodynamic as a brick. But its 4.5 litre 207 brake horsepower V8 paired with rear wheel drive makes it quite a weapon. Plumbing on Monday, racing on Sunday. It's like a more toned down and heavier Grand Marshal. The body roll is off the scale, it rocks from side to side like a boat and is quite top heavy. Although it is quite planted to the road, but that's most likely due to the weight forcing the van to the ground. 5 out of 10. Here comes our heaviest car yet. As you may know by now, Gavril is a pioneer of heavy vehicles, and this next one is no exception. As it's not exactly a mid-trim model for the MD series, I decided to go with the most common, recognisable one. 35% of you will know what it's like to be in this. Yep, the all-American school bus. Featuring the largest engine so far, a 10.4 litre Belasco diesel inline 6, with the T195 turbocharger making... No, you're wrong, but you were close. 194 brake horsepower. Despite being a school bus, it does feature some good handling characteristics. Its incredibly light steering paired with an excellent turning circle makes it incredible in the corners, but obviously, it's incredibly slow and heavy. But for a multi-ton school bus, it's rather impressive. The Gavril Roma is your stereotypical all-American SUV. A V8, 4-wheel drive, and a 4-speed auto box. Sold in its millions before a third of them rotted away a year later thanks to Gavril's shoddy steel manufacturing. The Roma was one of the last family bestsellers before the minivan craze of the early 2000s. Probably for the best, knowing the Roma's tendency to sit on its roof. Oddly, the Roma suffers from snap oversteer, which led to the first crash of the video, believe it or not. Aside from that catastrophic design flaw, the Roma, like all other Gavril vehicles, suffers from noticeable body roll. But again, surprisingly well planted. But still, that oversteer is unforgivable. 4.5 out of 10. Now, we have the ultimate Gavril. The T-Series was introduced in 1972 and has been moving America since. Millions upon millions of tons of cargo moved every year, from food to furniture to electronics to Covets. Yeah. All thanks to the 14.7 litre Belasco diesel inline 6 and a 10-speed manual gearbox working together in harmony. Thanks to its sophisticated air-ride suspension system, it's quite still, not swaying from side to side as much as you'd expect, and staying relatively well planted to the tarmac. Oddly, the specific truck I drove does not come with brakes fitted to the front wheels. This doesn't seem to affect the braking, surprisingly, however. I wouldn't have noticed anyway because I didn't manage to get over 35. It also has horrible steering, most likely due to the fact that it has horrendous understeer and is incredibly heavy. 2 out of 10. For our next Hirochi, we have a sleek, quirky and massively overlooked sports car. Taking many cues from Porsche, such as its 2 litre dual overhead cam flat 4 rear engine layout and its fatback design.
And then,
it's quite similar to a Porsche, making 296 brake horsepower sent through all 4 wheels in the all-wheel drive S model, and having top of the line suspension for 2013 anyway. I really like how this car looks. It's possibly one of the best looking cars in the game. I do believe, however, that its design is the reason people ignore it. It doesn't look sporty and the proportions are very Grand Tourer if anything. However, it's a lot different behind the wheel. Despite being more on the heavy side of most sports cars, it's quite hard to notice. It's very nimble in the corners, but it does have a slight hint of oversteer. It also has no body roll whatsoever, or at least what you can feel in the cockpit. It's well planted, has good gearing, and is very quick. 8 out of 10. Now we move on to the family saloon, or rental car. Sports car, movie car, whatever it is, it's pretty good at it. Sunburst is a practical and sporty compact saloon, but just by a glance, you wouldn't be able to tell. But when you put your foot down, it's a whole other car. Powered by a 2-litre flat 4 making 215 brake horsepower evenly distributed across all 4 of its wheels, it's quite the sleeper. It stays grounded through the corners and is fitted with a silky smooth 5-speed manual. Sadly, this is where the positives end. Being a car from 2009, its traction control is understandably a bit dated, which is plainly obvious in the corners. It's like it's trying to drive for you. It's possibly one of the most intrusive safety systems we've encountered yet. So bad, in fact, that I went for a second run without it, and yet still, it has incredibly heavy understeer. For a rallying legend, handling isn't on its side, and frankly I'm quite saddened by this. I quite like the Sunburst, but I do believe it's the all-wheel drive system because I could have sworn it was way better than this. Oh yeah, I'm editing at the minute, and I just realised that I'm completely wrong. It turns out I was completely ragging this thing, to be honest, and since driving it now, I realise that if you just take a corner like a normal person, you won't end up ripping the rubber from your tyres. So, ignore what I've said, just drive normally, please. 6 out of 10. Here's a fan favourite. The Ibishu 200 series holds legendary status in BeamNG. A Japanese sports liftback that can do pretty much any motorsport thrown at it. You'll see them drifting, racing, crashing, and fighting crime? The universal standard for a sports car. Nowadays it's impossible to find one below 10 grand that isn't crashed or stolen, but back in the day they were a quick, intermediate way to get an adrenaline rush. Its famously reliable 2-litre twin-cam inline-4 produced in factory specifically for the BX will happily push 6,500 RPM at 140 mph for however long you need to. In fact, it was so durable that Ibishu garages in Japan began to lose money due to the loss in business. Needless to say, its handling is of similar quality, with McPherson struts at the front and multi-link at the rear. It was quite the revelation at the time. This therefore makes it a dream on the track. It's incredibly smooth and thanks to its state-of-the-art ABS, it's kept cleanly on the tarmac. And when you need to, you can do this. But obviously, with this comes snap oversteer, which is quite nasty too. Take a drift for too long and you won't be able to recover it. But in the end, it has pretty smart handling. 7 out of 10. Now, here's my favourite. The 1986 Covet is the poster child of my channel. A boxy, lightweight, front-wheel drive 3-door hatchback. So light in fact, that it weighs just under a ton. A proper throwabout. Sentenced to many crashes, thrashing and other egregious activities throughout my BeamNG experience, with its indestructible 1.5 litre fuel-injected 4-banger, 89 horsepower and terrible safety standards. Despite all this, it has rather smart suspension, with a double wishbone setup and 3-link in the rear. It's actually had 4 put into it. On the track it's incredibly nippy and has advantageous understeer. Thanks to its 60-40 weight distribution, all the weight at the front makes understeer quite manageable, sticking to the corners at reasonable speeds. Ironically, these are its fail points too. The poor weight distribution and understeer makes it pretty impractical during regular operation. But how could you hate the Covet? 4 out of 10. The Hopper is an odd vehicle, a 4-wheel drive SUV with a transfer case that is automatically set to rear-wheel drive. The car never came with a permanent all-wheel drive option, oddly. Mainly brought by beachgoers in Cali and the Italian Carabinieri, it sadly never caught on too well, with many American buyers opting for the all-American Roma or D15 Charo. Maybe if they'd put a V8 in it, it would have caught on. Under the bonnet is a 4-litre inline-6 making a whopping 163 brake horsepower. Coming in stock with rear-wheel drive paired with this powerful engine can only mean fun. And the Hopper sure is. Its oversteer can be very fun to mess around with. Drifting around every corner with reckless abandon, it's also surprisingly well planted, having limited body roll and snap oversteer. But obviously, you don't want to be silent across the Pacific Coast Highway at 60 mph because you forgot to slap it in 4-wheel drive. 4.5 out of 10. The 60s was a good time for cars and the world as a whole. New technological advancements, financial freedom, and V8 motors beginning to get less shit. However, for those looking to save a pretty penny on fuel, they had to look east, and Japan had just released a belter. The 1963 Miramar was a small, economical, sporty or utilitarian car depending on what you decided to spend your precious dollars on. Coming with a 1.9 litre overhead cam inline 4, forcing out 95 horsepower at a sensible 4,500 RPM. The low revs were mainly to save fuel, obviously. Despite the dull statistics, it was quite the sprightly car, thanks to its low curb weight of just 1,090 kilograms mainly. Due to its leaf springs and the lack of sway bars in the back, it does like to roll from side to side. A lot. The body roll is quite astounding really, similar to the H-Series for example, which is a van. It does like to oversteer too, all the weight sloshing from side to side is mainly to blame. However, it is manageable. Ignoring the lack of gears, the ratios are pretty decent, making the driving experience pretty fair. Overall, the Miramar scores a 5.5 out of 10. Now, the car you've all been waiting for. The 1998 Ibishu Pessima. Taking the role of BeamNG's and car, it is in fact a car. With a 2 litre dual overhead cam inline 4 engine, it has an engine. It also came standard with suspension. More specifically, McPherson struts at the front and multi-link at the rear. All of its 139 horsepower is sent straight to the 2 front wheels. Understeer is a way of life to the Pessima. Not a single corner is taken without the horrific screech of the 2 front tyres. But if you're just going for a shopping trip, it's bearable. 5 out of 10. Its successor is actually worse, believe it or not. With America transitioning to blob cars, Japan needed to keep up with the trends. Their result was this. The 1996 Pessima. Being one of the better looking blob cars, it sold well. It was powerful, efficient and comfortable. Nowadays you'll find them outside a scrapyard, parked on the city street with over 1,500 parking violations, or sitting outside someone's driveway, waiting for a YouTuber to pick it up and drive it recklessly on the streets. Understeer, whilst being less prominent on the Mark II than its predecessor, is still quite noticeable. Luckily, it never lost the charm of being an car, being rather boring to drive. Imagine rice pudding, but with no flavour, translated into a car steering column. That is how dire the Mark II Pessima is. In short, a 2.7 litre, 174 brake horsepower V6 thrown into the front 2 wheels isn't the way to go. We have finally reached peak. This is the Ibishu Pigeon. Built on a ladder frame with a minuscule 550cc inline 3 that produces a shocking 31 brake horsepower, it also takes 31 seconds to reach 60. Due to its lack of shocks and its unusual belt-driven steering assembly, it is an absolute death trap to operate, unlike the Reliant Robin which had slightly better weight distribution to prevent rolls. The Pigeon is incredibly dodgy and has massive understeer, shocker I know, and when you get behind the wheel and get to speed, you will feel an overwhelming sense of impending doom. However, this does mean you do have to focus more, which most cars don't normally do. Still, it gets a 1 out of 10. Riding high after the popularity and success of the Pigeon, Ibishu decided it needed a faster, more amusing and deadlier friend. The top designers spent weeks brainstorming until they had it. An open canopy design, a wedge-shaped, subcompact coupe. Unlike the Pigeon, which was built specifically for the Japanese market, Ibishu saw the amount that were being exported to Europe, and especially the United Kingdom, and then being modified by enthusiasts. They had hoped the Wigeon would see large success among these enthusiasts, having a more radical, sportier car to build on. Sadly, it never caught on, but a small niche was carved out in southwest England. This catastrophic sales failure may have crashed in the marketing department, but on the road, it's even worse. Imagine a Pigeon and then adding more power and removing more weight off it. You will feel every bump. However, the lightness does make it slightly more drivable. 1.5 out of 10. The Soliad Wendover is an interesting car, having the longest development cycle out of any other car, being sat dormant in the design department for nearly over 10 years. It came out with reasonable hype in 2022, having an advanced touchscreen and fully digital dash. It came with a 3.8 litre V6 making 153 brake horsepower, being sent straight to the 2 front wheels. It's also based on the Legrand chassis, meaning it has prominent understeer and other handling characteristics from the Legrand. such as its body roll, but more noticeable. There's honestly not much else I can say. It's a 1980s American luxury coupe. You can tell it handles just by looking at it. 6 out of 10. Now we have our final car in the game. The Soliad Landdale is your typical 90s American minivan. Slow, smooth, and incredibly fat. Powered by its miserable 2.5 litre inline-4 making 139 brake horsepower, little known fact, the sport model is not faster in any way. It's still powered by the same 2.5 litre inline-4 from the base model and still makes the same 139 brake horsepower. The only difference is that it came standard with a manual transmission, meaning no one bought it. More interestingly, the Aero models came with a 2.5 TDI. Unfortunately for Beam, you can apparently copyright engine features, meaning it had to be changed to the TD 2.5. Now, the van. Thanks to it being based on a Lagrange chassis, again, it has hideous understeer thanks to its front-wheel drive build. Being constructed like an egg, it is rather aerodynamic. However, it is also quite top-heavy, resulting in quite a bit of body roll. It has similar suspension to the Lagrange too, featuring independent front suspension, McPherson struts, with disc brakes, and a 2-link trailing arm with a panhard bar, rear beam axle. Very advanced technology. Despite this, it does take corners reasonably well, managing to get around every bend with little difficulty. 3.5 out of 10. And finally, the final stop. The Wentworth DT4EL is an American city/highway bus built to carry 28 people. It got its name from its diesel engine, transit, 40 feet long, low floor configuration. It features an 8.9 litre turbocharged diesel inline-6 making 346 brake horsepower from factory. The highway version has no alteration to the engine except for an elongated final drive. Thanks to its sharp steering angle, it corners very well whilst being very lightly operated. Its low weight helps it keep it planted to the road, meaning it handles very smoothly. However, its length and height means it scrapes the ground very often, especially on this type of road. Overall, the Wentworth receives an average 3 out of 10. I mean, it's a bus, come on. There. That is every vehicle in BeamNG ranked based on handling. Our worst car was the FPU Wigeon thanks to its tank-like steering and awful gearbox, and the best handled car in BeamNG is the ETK K-Series. This thing is absolutely incredible. It has perfect weight distribution, a beautiful 3 litre dual overhead cam inline-6 producing 360 brake horsepower to all 4 wheels. If you are looking for the ultimate driver's experience, you now know what to get behind the wheel of. With all that said, thank you very much for watching, and if you feel that this video was good, it would be very kind of you to like. And if you feel like you'll be coming back for more, feel free to subscribe. Cheers! See you next time.